Hello and welcome everyone for today's Red Dot session on Oracle Identity and Access Management Solution. My name is Poornima. I work as Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Security Specialist. Today I'm thrilled to be here to introduce you all the new OCI IAM service. Let's get started. Here is the standard Oracle Safe Harbor statement, which implies that today's session is for information purposes only and it is not part of any legally binding agreement. This is the agenda I planned for today's session. I'll give you a brief overview about the IDCS and the OCI IAM, and then we can discuss on the IDCS migration. Then I'll introduce you to the OCI IAM domains, and then the core functionalities of the OCI IAM domains. And I've also identified a few of the most common use cases that our customers are requesting for, like Active Directory integrations with the OCI IAM, the Azure AD integration, and the enterprise business applications like the e-business suite and the major Oracle SaaS applications integrations with the OCI IAM domains. So we'll be discussing on all of these use cases in today's session. So before moving into the OCI IAM domain, let me talk about what we had earlier, right? So earlier when the Oracle Cloud was launched, we had an OCI IAM where you can locally manage the users within the OCI to provide an access to the OCI resources, right? So for example, if you have a users or a group of end user who wants to be a network administrator or need to have access only to the network related resource, or maybe you have a group of user who needs to have an access only to the compute instance or a database applications, right? So how do you segregate or how do you provide an access to those different group of end user based on the compartments? So that you could do with the help of the OCI IAM. And then we had, if you want to provision any of the PaaS application, that you could have done using the OCI IAM, similar way with the Oracle PaaS applications. But then we had like few of the customers says, okay, I want to leverage the OCI IAM to integrate my on-premise applications or to integrate my third-party applications, right? So in that scenario, we couldn't do it with the OCI IAM. So at the same time, many of our customers told that Oracle that they wanted a SaaS delivered identity and the access management suite. So several years ago, we introduced the Oracle Identity Cloud Service, which was our IDaaS offering, the Identity as a Service offering, focused on the authentication, identity lifecycle management, access management, and the single sign-on solution. So now with the help of the OCI IAM and the IDCS, we could able to manage few of the resources on the OCI and as well as to give a seamless single sign-on authentication to the on-premise and the third-party applications. And then we decided, okay, why don't we federate IDCS and the OCI IAM, right? Maybe a group of users in the IDCS might need an access to few of the OCI resource. So for that, then we federated the IDCS and the OCI IAM to manage the resource. And if any group of users from the IAM need an access to the IDCS, then we would have done the group mapping from the IAM to the IDCS. But then several customers raised their voice saying that, okay, why do we need to manage the users at the two different places when both are the Oracle identity and the access management solution, right? So that is when we introduced the OCI IAM domains. So in late 2021, we merged the IDCS into the native OCI IAM service, creating a single unified IDaaS platform that grew to become the foundational service of our cloud-based identity fabric. So now this, with the help of the single identity domain or an OCI IAM domain, with this new concept, you can integrate your on-premise application with the domains. You can manage your OCI access control to the resource using the IAM policies. You can manage the access to your PaaS applications, your SaaS applications, and the non-Oracle or the third-party applications, everything under the one roof with the help of the OCI IAM domains. So this new unified service maintains all the existing OCI IAM functionalities and brings all the existing IDCS functionalities as well. And will also integrate natively with the other OCI security capabilities in the near future too. So the end result is a service that unifies the admin experience, provides a single view of the access risk, and offers a seamless single sign-on experience for the end user. So this is the whole what is the purpose of having the identity domains on the Oracle Cloud. So let's see what are the core capabilities of the OCI IAM, right? So we have the 4 key capabilities of the OCI IAM. That is the inbound authentication and the SSO, the identity store and lifecycle management, then the outbound authentication and the SSO, and then the Oracle Cloud authentication and the access policies. Let's start with the inbound authentication and SSO, right? So this is how the users are authenticated into the service. So we offer numerous methods, including the social logon, federated logon, and the you for the organization who want to leverage the Active Directory without moving the AD credentials into the cloud service. We also support the delegated authentication between the AD and the IAM using the AD bridge component. Then on top of that, to increase the secure access to the application, you can enable the multi-factor authentication and the adaptive security. Then let's go with the identity and the identity store and the lifecycle management, right? So this is about how do you manage bringing the users from the different systems to the OCI IAM. So we have several mechanisms to do that. So one using the bridge you're bringing in, then with the help of the provisioning bridge. I'll explain each of these features in the coming slides. And then we have the application catalog, where we have a several app listed over there. So using all these 3 functionalities, you can do and manage their users' role and the group membership, assigning the permissions, provisioning and the deprovisioning of the accounts, automating the synchronization, and setting the security policies. And for the outbound authentication and the SSO, after we know who the user is and what permission they have, so this is how we enable the single sign-on to the target application. So the target application could be your SaaS application, or it could be your enterprise app, maybe that is your on-premise application, or it could be your Linux host servers, or it could be an Oracle database or your VPN clients. So finally, for the customers using the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure OCI IAM policies, you can also manage the access to the OCI resources like the networking, the compute storage, and the analytics, the access control, right? So everything you could manage with the IAM. If you have any questions, you can write down in the chat. We have the team who is addressing those queries as well. So in case, feel free to drop a note over there as well. Okay, now we understood the overview or the core capabilities of the IAM. Let's go in depth and understand about each of the key capabilities of the IAM, right? So the first is the inbound authentication and the SSO. So there are several ways how you can log on to the OCI IAM. So the one is the basic authentication using the username and the password. You can be treated as a local user in the IAM, right? And you can log in with the local username and the password. Or if you have any of the other identity providers that are supporting the SAML, OpenID Connect, or the OAuth, then you can onboard those identity providers to the OCI IAM, because OCI IAM supports these standard open standard protocols. And if you have any such identity providers in your organization, customer can onboard those identity providers to the IAM. And then we have the social logons, like we do support the users coming from the social platform like the LinkedIn, Twitter. If you have the users coming from these sources, you can onboard those users as well to the IAM. Then on top of that, as we discussed, to increase the secure access to the application, you can enable the MFA and the adaptive security. Then of course we have the bridge. So I have a different use case talking about the bridge as well in the coming slides. Okay, so what are the MFA factors that are supported by the OCI IAM, right? We also provide a native authentication, of course, with the several options for the multi-factor authentication, including the mobile app with one-time password or the simple push to approve. So the mobile app, what we're using is the Oracle Mobile Authenticator. You can, it's available at a free of cost at the Apple Store and the Play Store. You can download it from there. And we also do support the common MFA methods like the email, the SMS, or the phone call, the security questions. So these are the other options which you can leverage. Then if you have any of the hardware keys or the UB keys to log into the OCI IAM or the application protected by the OCI IAM, then you can onboard those authenticators, FIDO2 authenticator, because we do support the FIDO2 authenticators as well. And then let's assume like your user has lost all of the devices, but still you don't want the user to be getting blocked from accessing the IAM or the application protected by the IAM, right? So how do you prevent or allow that user to have the access? So your administrator then can help you with the bypass code. So using the bypass code, you are still able to access your application. Then we do support the third-party authenticators like the Duo and the Ubico. And also we support the Google Authenticator and the Microsoft Authenticators. So if you have those authenticators already customers having, and if they want to onboard it to the OCI IAM, you can onboard those authenticators as well to the OCI IAM. Okay, now let's see how the adaptive security and the MFA can come together to enable the secure access to the application, right? So adaptive security is basically, it will let you know how is the user behaving in the OCI IAM, right? So it will allow us to evaluate the session context in the real time, looking at the factors such as, okay, is this the user device trusted? What network or the location are they coming from? And their recent behavior. And we use the telemetry to make the decision about whether to allow or deny the access to the application or set up the authentication to a stricter MFA mechanism. Let's take an example, right? So I'm presenting today from the India. I've logged into the OCI IAM today, right? And at the same time, somebody got my credentials and they're trying to log in from the Spain. So the same person cannot log in from the two different locations at the same time, right? Or it could be maybe in an hour of an interval. So it is impossible to travel from India to Spain within an hour. So these are the impossible travel locations. So what your IAM should do when these kinds of activities are identified by the OCI IAM. So you can define, okay, let's say if there is a 5 unsuccessful login attempts, or if there is a 5 unsuccessful MFA login attempts, or if there is an impossible travel location between the users. So when such activities are found, you can write a policy stating that, okay, either you block that user or deny that user or prompt him for an MFA accordingly. So based on whatever the policy you attach to the adaptive security, accordingly, the user will be prompted while he is accessing the target application. So that was about the inbound authentication, right? And then we have the, let's talk about the identity store and the user lifecycle management. So of course, you can manage the users and the entitlements directly in the console, but it's also common for the customers to want to automate the account provisioning, deprovisioning, and the entitle management. So we have several ways to do it. You can do it using the command line interface, the OCI CLI, or using the APIs. And in case if you have registered any of the SAML IDP, for the SAML IDPs, we do support the just-in-time provisioning where you can create the user account on the fly. So as we know that for the SAML authentication to happen, the user needs to be present on both the system, right? The target system and the IAM. So if the IAM knows that the user is not present in the IAM, then it can actually go and create that user an account in the OCI IAM using the JIT capabilities of the OCI IAM. Then we do have the several application catalog templates available that are pre-configured for the provisioning. So you can use those templates to onboard your users from the other set of the target applications. Then we have the Active Directory bridge available to onboard your employees. Let's say your customer having any of the other different kinds of end user, like the consumer users, where the user repository are stored in the different LDAP directory. It could be an Oracle Internet Directory or an unified directory. So how can you bring those users from those kinds of an LDAP directory, right? So for that, we do have something called as a provisioning bridge. So using the provisioning bridge, you can onboard the users from the different LDAP directories. And this works based on the ICF connectors. This is same as the ICF connectors we had with the Oracle on-premise identity and the management solution, right? This is same as the feature which was there in the on-premise solution. And then let's talk on the outbound authentication and the SSO, right? So we know, as already told in the beginning, that Oracle IAM domains do supports the open standard protocols like the SAML, OpenID Connect. These are the industry standard protocols, right? So all these protocols has been supported by the IAM. Okay, let's say if you have a target applications that is not supporting any of these protocols, right? So how can you still integrate those applications with the IAM? So that is using the application gateway. So we have an app gateway module available in the IAM, using which you can integrate your enterprise on-premise enterprise applications or the on-premise application using the HTTP header-based authentication mechanism. Then we do have several, I think 400 plus application templates available for the single sign-on in the application catalog template. So you can use those pre-configured SSO templates to have a seamless single sign-on to your target application. And then we have the Radius proxy that allows the authentication for the databases and the VPN clients. And we also offer an Linux PEM module that supports the SSO to the Linux host which are running on the OCI. So these are the different ways how you can do an outbound authentication from the IAM to your target applications, right? So we have seen the three capabilities of the IAM domain. So this is the final one, which how you can manage the OCI IAM policies, right? So by default, all the permissions are denied in the OCI IAM. So as an administrator must create a policies to allow the access where appropriate, right? So this is one of the policy syntax that we have. So let's say, as I was discussing in the beginning, let's say you have a different compartments. Maybe you have a 3 to 4 compartments, where in each of the compartment you are having a different resource. Maybe in the compartment 1, you have a resource like the database. In the compartment 2, you might have a resource like compute instances. So you want to segregate the access between these two compartments, right? So you want to manage a different access to these two compartments. So then you can create a 2 different groups saying that, okay, these are the database administrator and these are the compute administrator, and you can attach a policy accordingly to the specific domain. So as you can see here, the policy starts with the word allow because everything is denied by default, as I said. Then you have to mention to which identity domain you're tagging this policy. So you can create a several identity domains, right? Inside one OCI tenancy, you can create one domain to manage your production users. You can create another domain to manage your test users. So similar way, you can create multiple identity domains in the OCI. So you have to define to which domain you're addressing this policy. And the subject is basically the group which you are addressing. This group could be your database administrator group or your network administrator group or a user who need an access to the applications or a migration user. So you have to define the subject, that is the group of the users who need an access. And then you have to define a verb. So we have the different kinds of the verbs in the OCI, right? Like the read, inspect, manage. So these are the few of the verbs we have. So you have to define what verb, and then you have to attach, say, okay, what resource type you're giving an access to. If it is a compute instance or the network or the database, you are stating this policy. And then you can define the compartments, and then you can define the conditions, like what tenancy, in which compartment they need to have, in the which tenancy. So those things you can define it in the OCI IAM policy, so that they can manage the entire OCI resources accordingly based on the policies what you attach to a specific group. So this is also very important feature of the IAM domain with the unification. Okay, so we have seen the 4 core capabilities of the OCI IAM, right? Like the inbound authentication, the outbound authentication, the identity lifecycle management, the access policy controls, and the protocols that has been supported by the IAM. Like we support the industry standard protocols, as I said, the SAML, OAuth, OIDC, the SCIM, the REST API. So these are all few of the industry standard protocols that also been supported by the IAM domains. Okay, now let's talk about what are the different types of the domain we do have, right? So I want to just provide a high-level understanding of the domain identity domain types, but please refer to the official documentation for the full information and what's included in the each domain type and what are the related limits on each of the domain type, right? So let's start with a free domain. So every OCI account has a default domain, which is of type free, and the ability to create an additional free domain. So the intent of providing the free identity domain is to allow customers of the OCI to manage access to their cloud resource, right? So these are relatively like fully featured with the various authentication options, including the MFA and the adaptive security, but there is a limit of the 2000 users. So these aren't idle for the setting up the enterprise workforce access management. And then moving on to the Oracle apps. Oracle apps is actually tied up with the few of the Oracle service teams. For example, if you purchase any of the Oracle SaaS applications or the VBCS, these domain type come tied up with those services. So this is something customer cannot create from the console because these are attached to the service teams. And then we have the Oracle Apps Premium. This looks interesting because it is just a $0.25 per users per month, and it has almost all the features, but with a few of the limitations, right? So it supports all kind of the features that customer is requesting for, but there is a limitations of adding only a 6 non-Oracle applications. So you can treat the Oracle Apps Premium exclusively, specifically for the Oracle applications, but some customers, I mean, they do have majority of the other non-Oracle applications as well. So in case if they're going with this, because they have majority of the Oracle applications and less than 6 non-Oracle apps, then this would be the ideal licensing type that customer would choose for. Then we have the last two, which are pretty simple. One is the external and the premium. The external domain provide the right feature set for the consumer IAM or the app developers with the consumer or the citizen audience. It provides the features like the social logon, self-registration, terms of use of consent, and the other customer-facing features. But it doesn't support the hybrid IAM, right? In case if you want to integrate with your on-premise Active Directory, or if you with the on-premise application, then you cannot go with the external users because these are specifically for the consumer users. Then with the premium, you will get all the features with no. This is the fully feature loaded instance with the no feature restriction. There is no any object limit of the number of the users or the group or the application they're going to be created. It's completely of no restrictions when the customer go with the premium license. So this is what I wanted to cover on the OCI IAM domain types. So I have the pricing link and everything attached in a finance in the last slide. So when we're gonna share this presentation deck, you can use those links to look up into to understand more about the features and the SKUs for each of these domain types. Okay. So now let me start with the use case, right? So I have created a couple of use cases to discuss here. So the first use case, what we have here is for the how we can integrate the OCI IAM with the Microsoft on-premise Active Directory, right? So let's say the customer says, okay, we are planning to onboard third-party applications, Oracle or the non-Oracle applications or the on-premise applications to the Oracle Cloud. But our user repositories are present in the Active Directory, and we want our users to be onboarded from the Active Directory to the IAM. So how can we do that, right? So this could be achieved with the help of the AD Bridge component. This is a lightweight LDAP component. I'm sorry. This is in lightweight LDAP component. This could be installed on an Active Directory domain controller server on the Active Directory instance. And with the help of the AD bridge, you can synchronize the users, like the specific organizational OUs group of users and the groups from the Active Directory to the IAM. Okay. So there are different kinds of scenarios. Customer would prefer using the Active Directory authentication with the OCI IAM. So I try to capture few of these scenarios, right? Like how can, okay, some customers say, okay, we have a requirement, like how can we use the same existing Active Directory credentials to log on to the OCI IAM? Or how do we locally log into the IAM using the IAM local username and the password, right? Or how do I, okay, I have a federation service, and how do I integrate that federation service with the IAM? So these are the three common scenarios what we see when the customer go with the Active Directory bridge or the Active Directory integration with the IAM, right? And here I have written as a bidirectional synchronization. When I say it's a bidirectional, the user creation is just a one flow, right? The user can only be created from the Active Directory to the IAM domain. But here the bidirectional is referring to the updates of the user account you're doing once it has been synced to the IAM domains. So let's say you have created a user account and you have synchronized to the IAM. And in the IAM domain, you update a user email address, or maybe the user has been promoted and his designation has changed and his title has been changed, right? So these information is a bidirectional is what we mean here. So these updates can be synced from the IAM to the AD, and the same ways from the AD to the OCI IAM. Okay, so this is one of the flow, right? We've talked about the delegated authentication. Okay, so we know that, okay, we got to know that if the user is present in Active Directory using the AD bridge, I can synchronize them to the OCI IAM. So once the user is inside the OCI IAM, okay, how do I make my user to log into the OCI? Or for instance, it could be in any application that has been protected with the OCI IAM, right? So how can I achieve this one? So one of the feature you can enable in the IAM is the delegated authentication feature. So using this feature, you can log into the IAM using your Active Directory credentials. So here the bridge will take care of your user synchronization as well as an authentication between your Active Directory and the IAM domain. So this is one of the example, right? So when we say the bidirectional synchronization, here you can see one of the user in the IAM domain has been deactivated, right? So with the help of the bridge, since we say it's a bidirectional synchronization, the user in the identity domain is deactivated, and the information is passed from the bridge to the Active Directory, and the user has been disabled even in the Active Directory groups or in the OU as well. So this is what we mean when we say the bidirectional synchronization. Okay, then let's discuss about the OCI IAM authentication, right? So, okay, we saw the delegated authentication, and the next use case was with the IAM authentication. Okay, now the customers say, okay, I have a requirement. Okay, I don't want my users to use the AD credentials, but I want them to treat as a local users of the OCI IAM, right? So how can I achieve this one? So for the bulk user creation or the import, you can do from the AD bridge to the OCI IAM. Once you onboarded them to the OCI IAM, we have the bridge configuration. In the configuration, you can say, okay, whenever you import a user, you treat them as a local user, right? So once you enable that with the password reset email enabled, notification enabled, then the end user who has been synced from AD to the IAM domain will receive an email to reset their password, and they can reset the password with the OCI IAM. They will receive an OCI IAM password reset recovery email, and with the help of that, they can log into the IAM with the local as a local IAM users, right? Instead of using the Active Directory credentials. So this is one scenario. And the another scenario is with the federation service. So if let's say you have the active customer. Some customers are having the enterprise, big customers are having the Active Directory Federation service running on top of their Active Directory machine, right? So how can they make use of the ADFS federation with the OCI IAM? So IDFS also do supports the SAML protocol, and as we discussed, OCI IAM also do supports the SAML protocol. So you can onboard the ADFS Federation service as a SAML IDP. This is the configuration snapshot I have attached here. Screenshot, you can see there is a minimal detail requirement that we need from an ADFS instance, right? Like for example, we might need an identity provider to identify, okay, this is a trusted resource or the trusted provider where the users are coming in and accessing the applications that are being protected with the IAM. So the few details you will enter while registering the ADFS as an IDP, and you have to define what is the common attribute that you want to consider when they're trying to log in, right? Either it could be your email address, or it could be your username, or it could be the employee number. So you have to define what is a common attribute that you are trying to bring or use to the authentication in the SAML assertion, right? So once you have decided that, and whenever the user try to access any of the application protected by IAM, or even to log into the IAM, they see a login screen like as shown here. Not just the username and the password, but in the below they have an option to log in via the ADFS. So the user will come and they'll click on the ADFS option, and they will be redirected to the ADFS page to enter their ADFS credential to access the application. And if you want your user to not to have this local username and password option, you can still disable this using the IDP policies available in the OCI IAM, and you can say all the users just go to the ADFS for the authentication. You can still leverage that option with the IAM domain. So these are the three major use cases what we see when we integrate the Active Directory with the OCI IAM. Okay, let's talk about the high availability, right? So we told you can use the AD bridge to synchronize the users. And also you can use the AD bridge to do a delegated authentication. So some customers say, okay, what if the bridge goes down? Will I be logged out of the OCI IAM? Will I not be able to access any of the applications that are protected by the IAM, right? So in such situations, what you can do is you can configure a high availability bridge for your same Active Directory domain. You can configure 2 bridges. You can actually configure more than 1 bridge according to the number of the users you're trying to sync, or number of the users who are trying to log into your applications or to the IAM, right, using the AD credentials. And with the help of this bridge, you will configure a high availability feature. So when any one of the bridge goes down, you always have another bridge which is up and running to log on to the OCI IAM. So these are the bridge functionalities we saw, right? So which is the outbound synchronization we have seen, the changes which is happening at the IAM level, like as we discussed, if you change the user group or the membership of the user, whatever you change at the IAM is synced to the AD, and the same the vice versa as well. And the network failure handling, as we discussed, if there is an AD down, you can always go for the high availability. But if you have a less number of users and you still don't want to use the high availability, then what are the things you can do with the IAM domain when your AD is down, right? So we have an option. So we told in the beginning, right, IAM is not storing your Active Directory password, but there is an option in the OCI IAM where the customers can enable. It is not enabled by default. You can enable a password cache. So the IAM will capture the last 5 login of the user, so that whenever the bridge is down, it will not lock the user. Instead, it will allow the user to log into the application using that password cache. And then we discussed about the federation using the ADFS. And then we discussed about the we didn't discuss about the LDAP filters, right? So you can, if you have in different groups and the group of users in the Active Directory, and you wish to bring only a specific set of users, right? you can write the LDAP filters. So we have an option available in the configuration page of an AD bridge, where you can decide which group of an users you're willing to bring from your Active Directory, or which OU you want to bring in, right? So you can define that LDAP filters as well. And we also seen the high availability in case if the bridge is down, how can you still reach out to the AD for the authentication. So these are a few of the functionalities when we talk about the AD bridge. So that finishes up our use case 1. And let's discuss about the use case 2, right? So how you can integrate the OCI IAM with the Azure AD. So few of the customers or many of the organization, what they do is when they have both the on-premise Active Directory and the cloud Azure Active Directory, they usually tend to sync the users from the on-premise to the Azure cloud. So, and now they say, okay, how can we integrate the Azure cloud with the OCI IAM, right? So that is also possible with the IAM. So Azure also supports the SAML federation. And of course, we have seen the capabilities of the IAM. IAM is also supporting the SAML. So you can federate between the Azure and the OCI IAM using the you use it by registering the Active Directory as a SAML IDP in the IAM. And we also can create an enterprise application or the non-gallery application in the Azure Active Directory to register the OCI IAM as a SAML application client in the Azure Active Directory. And all you have to do is then exchange a metadata between the Azure and the OCI IAM so that the federation can happen, right? So for the federation to happen, we need to have a user account at both the places, right? Because the SAML session expect the user to be present in both the system. One is the Azure Active Directory and the IAM. So we cannot manually create all the users from the Azure to the IAM. We need some automation or the provisioning process to be there, right? So IAM REST API comply with the scheme, and which is an open API standard for managing the identities across the vendors. So the Azure AD scheme client can be configured to use the API to create or update or delete the users and the groups in the IAM. So with the help of this, you can do a provisioning and as well as a synchronization between the two systems. Okay, so once we have the SAML setup between the IAM and the Azure, then we can create a confidential application in the OCI IAM. So the confidential application where you can define what group or the group membership that is coming from the Azure AD. And this catalog will also help you in the Microsoft Azure to see, okay, only which group of user you need to send, right? Like if you have a couple of like 10-15 groups in the Azure and you want only 2-3 groups to be pushed from the Azure to the IAM, you can define what groups you're trying to push from the from the Azure to the IAM with the help of the scheme. So this slide depicts the user attribute mapping and the group mapping. And then you can also, as we discussed, you can also choose what you want to sync, right? Or sync only the assigned users and the groups, or you want to sync all the users and the groups, whatever it is present in the Azure Active Directory. So you have an option to decide what you want to bring in and manage it in the OCI IAM. Okay, now let's discuss the next use case. This is the most common use case we see on how you can integrate the Oracle SaaS Fusion applications with the OCI IAM for both single sign-on and as well as the user management. Here I've considered or here I've taken the example of the HCM application, but the same configuration applies to your other SaaS applications like the enterprise resource planning ERP or the supply chain management, the SCM, or it could be your CRM applications, right? So we have seen that the OCI IAM can act as in both an identity provider and as well as the service provider. And even the Fusion application can act as both IDP and the service provider. So here I've considered an example where the OCI IAM is acting as an identity provider and Fusion is acting as an service provider. So the Fusion is a SaaS application and it supports the standard protocol like the SAML, and you can register the OCI IAM as a SAML IDP to your inside your Fusion application. And in the OCI IAM, we have a dedicated template available for the Oracle SaaS applications, right? So we using that template, you can configure your SSO, you can configure your user provisioning between the two systems, which is your Fusion and the IAM, and you can import in users from your Fusion applications as well, and you can onboard them to the OCI IAM. So there are multiple options available with the catalog, which we will see in the next slide. Yeah, so now here is an end-to-end scenario, right? Let's say the customer says my user repository is in the Azure, so I want my Azure users to access the Fusion application. So how can I achieve this one? So as we said in the previous use cases, whereas an Azure can act as an IDP to the OCI IAM, so it will be a seamless single sign-on flow, right? So whenever the user is requesting, or whenever the user is hitting the HCM URL, he'll be redirected to the OCI IAM page where the user can choose how they want to log into their Fusion application, whether as a local user or an Azure AD user. And once they choose the option, they can key in their credential accordingly, and they will be inside the HCM or the any of the Fusion application that user is requesting for. In fact, you can actually bypass the local login option in the OCI or the IAM domains, and you can say all of your Fusion users to go directly for the Azure to do the authentication. So that seamless flow, or you can optimize the user experience with the help of the OCI IAM domains as well. Okay, so we said you can do a provisioning from your Fusion applications to the OCI IAM, right? So we do provide a couple of options on how you can synchronize, and what should be the permissions you're giving while doing a synchronizations, right? So we have two options called as an authoritative synchronization and a non-authoritative synchronize. So when I say the authoritative synchronize, your HCM will be the source of truth, right? So only the updates or the changes from the HCM will be reflected in the IAM. So whatever the changes you do at the IAM, that won't be reflected inside your Fusion applications in case if you enable the authoritative synchronization option. So your HCM will be the central source of truth. In case if you disable this option, you are giving a permission even for the IAM to do the changes, and those changes will be reflected back to your HCM. So it could be in either way, or you can still restrict it to be the one way. Okay, the last use case I have for today is on how we can integrate the Oracle e-business suite application with the IAM domains, right? So before that, let's understand what are the versions of the e-business suite that are supported by the IAM domains. So the release 11 and the release 12 and greater than 12.1.3 are the EBS versions with the latest patches that are supported by the OCI IAM to do a single sign-on, to enable the single sign-on on the Oracle e-business suite applications, right? So to do the single sign-on with the Oracle IAM domain, we need a component called as an EBS Asserter. So EBS Asserter is a lightweight Java application sitting on top of the EBS SDK, which runs on top of the WebLogic server. This needs to be deployed on an Oracle WebLogic server instance. So if you ask me like, okay, what is the need for an EBS Asserter? Okay, this is because the EBS suite does not support the SSO protocols like the SAML 2.0 or the OpenID Connect. These industry standard protocols are not supported by the EBS. So the EBS Asserter helps in consumes the OIDC token, which is generated by the OCI IAM, and validates it, and then creates a session for the user in the EBS application. Okay, so these are the four different scenarios or the modes how you can access the e-business suite application, right? So one, you can access the your e-business suite application using the EBS Asserter link, or you can access from the Oracle My Apps page, or if you have any redirect parameter defined for the EBS Asserter, using that also you can access your e-business suite application. And then, of course, with the previously bookmarked Oracle EBS URL, right? Before enabling the SSO mode, you can still make use of that URL to access your existing EBS application. Okay, so this is an enterprise scenario, right? For an enterprise customers. So, okay, we have understood that we need an EBS Asserter to integrate with the e-business suite application, right? So this is an end-to-end. Let me describe an end-to-end scenario. How the flow of a user will, like a new user, whenever joins an organization, right? So we understood that, okay, if the user is present in the Active Directory, with the help of the AD bridge, I can synchronize him to the OCI IAM. Okay, and some organizations synchronizes the users from the Active Directory to the Azure. So in case if the user is present in the Azure cloud, then with the help of this scheme, I can synchronize the user to the OCI IAM. So the user base is present in the OCI IAM. So once I have the user base in the OCI, Identity and Access Management, then with the help of the EBS Asserter, I will do configure the single sign-on as well. But I need to push the user right from the OCI IAM to the EBS database. How can I do that? So as we described, we have the few of the provisioning bridges available, right? And for the EBS also, we have a provisioning bridge developed for the exclusively only for the e-business suite application. And that provisioning bridge also comes up with few of the roles. So when you install it for the first time, it is able to pick up few of the roles from the e-business suite, and it will show it in the IAM domains. So whenever the user is created in the IAM domain, you can push that user with a right or a specific roles and the entitlements to the EBS FND users table in the EBS database. Okay. So the scenario would be like, okay, whenever there is a new user joins an organization, I'll go ahead and create him in the Active Directory. So with the help of the bridge, he is synchronized to the IAM domain. And since we have the setup between the IAM domain and the e-business suite using the provisioning bridge, he will be also pushed to the EBS database. So for the end user who accesses the EBS application, it will be a seamless single sign-on, right? So there is the user doesn't know what is happening in between, and whenever he accesses the EBS application, he already has a user account created to him in the EBS database. Similarly, with the Azure as well, if the user is synchronized from Azure to IAM, and with the help of the provisioning gateway or the provisioning bridge, we can synchronize that user or provision that users to the EBS DB, and he can seamlessly access the e-business suite application. Okay. So I have a video here. This is with respect to the screen. What you're seeing is the old IDCS, what we have described in the initial slide. But still, it holds good even with the IAM domains as well, right? Only the UI is changed, but the features and the functionalities, everything still holds good even with the IAM domains as well. So we have described four use cases, right? Like how you can access the business suite application. So here I have 3 use cases which are showing. Let me start the video, right? So you can see the user is trying to log into the EBS application with his username and the password to the IDCS, and then from there, using the My Apps page, he will be able to access the Oracle Business Suite application without asking for the username and the password. So this is because he already had a session with the IDCS, and since EBS is protected with the IDCS, it didn't ask for the username and the password. Okay, now the user is trying to access the e-business application from the previously bookmarked URL, right, which is your EBS URL. So whenever the user hit that URL, it will redirect to the IAM domains. But here what you're seeing is the IDCS screen. And once you enter the username and the password, you're taken to the e-business suite application homepage. So now, what if the user try to access? So let's say some customer says, okay, we don't want to expose our EBS URL, right? And how can we still log into your e-business suite application? So in case of that, you can use your asserter URL. right? So you have your asserter configured with your EBS. So you will get an asserter URL. And with the help of the asserter URL, you can access your e-business suite. So you could see here, he entered the asserter URL. It redirected for the IDCS to enter the username and password. Once the user key in his credential, he'll be logged into the e-business suite application. He'll be landed onto the e-business homepage. Yeah. So this is a short video I had prepared for the e-business suite demo. And let me go. Yeah. So we discussed about the provisioning bridge, right? Like what we have to connect from the OCI IAM to the EBS database. So these are the few of the screenshots from that provisioning bridge configurations. So once you define the bridge, you have to give the connectivity or the configuration details, like what is the username and the password, like the EBS administrator, and what is the JDBC URL connection string that you have been created in the EBS DB. You have to give those details, and you have to enable what are the provisioning operations you would like to perform from the IAM to the e-business suite. Like for example, if you want to create an account or you want to update an account or deactivate an account or delete an account, you have to define what operations you would like to perform on your EBS user. So accordingly, the IAM will take actions. Okay. And then you have the synchronization. So that was about the provisioning, and then is about the synchronization. So you need to have an for the existing EBS customers, they already might have few of the users in their EBS, right? Now for the single sign-on to happen, we need the users, existing EBS users also to be synchronized to the IAM. So to do that, you can enable the user synchronize option, and you can define what attribute you want to map it with the IAM domains. And once the exact match is found, what you want to do with that user. So whether you want to link and confirm, or you just want to you don't want to but just link and not confirm that user account in the IAM, and what is the interval that you wanted to just as a scheduler job scheduler synchronization, right? So how many times you want to do a synchronization between your EBS and the IAM, that also you need to define in the synchronization screen. So once you have defined, you can go and import the users. So accordingly, the user will be imported. Okay, and you can see an option here. I don't have a screenshot, but I can explain it. You have an option here as in user and the groups. So if you choose, for example, a groups, and in that group, let's say you have a 10 users, and all 10 users needs an access to the uh, financial, they might need a financial role in the e-business suite application, right? So then you can define, okay, this whole group of user needs to have a role called as in financial, and you can provision to the e-business suite database. So this user with the financial role on the entitlements will be provisioned to your EBS DB, and you can look up to that user in the e-business suite. So this is how you can manage the user provisioning and the synchronization between the two systems, which is IAM and the e-business suite. So yeah, now we are at the end of the today's session. We have discussed the most common use cases that could be achieved using the OCI IAM domains. So here are the few of the resources which could be helpful. I have left here the documentation link for the OCI IAM domain SKU in case if you are interested in knowing more about the licensing offering from the OCI IAM side. And also if you're interested in knowing more about what is the product is all about, I've also left the product documentation and also the use cases which we have discussed in today's session. So in case if you're interested in implementing the solution in your environment, these are the links which could help you in doing that. Yeah, so thank you all for joining today's session. Hope you had learned something useful.